I stand before the threshold, watching the fiery red-haired woman scream. The drizzle has plastered her hair to her face, long strands sticking to her skin. Despite the cold rain falling slowly, she continues her vehement outburst. In reality, I can't hear all the words because of the heavy rain and the noise in my ears. However, I grasp the main point. My wife, Beth, is having an affair with the husband of the Red Witch, Justin, also known as Nikki, with her angry red hair. A few months ago, during one of my rare business trips, my wife called me. While I saw the cold raindrops on the dirty hotel window, she said she wanted a divorce. After 9 years of marriage and only living together for 5 months since I left the military, I didn't even know we had issues. She never spoke up about anything, as far as I understood. At least until 3 months ago, when she started this vague relationship with this despicable guy. She finally succeeded while I was away on a business trip. I only understood everything a week before the red-haired girl appeared at my door, and I still had no evidence. I tried to come up with a plan. My wife had agreed to counseling before I knew about the affair, but she abruptly stopped after the second session. I suspect she was trying to convince the counselor to help ease the pain of ending the relationship. I think the main reason for suggesting counseling time was so she could tell her family and friends that she tried her best, especially with her parents. How her parents treat her is crucial to her, perhaps more important than anything in her world. So she waits until everything looks good, and he is willing to leave his wife and kids to start a new relationship. Beth and I have 2-year-old twin daughters, Angie and Amy. She's happy for me to take care of them when I'm home. Then she goes to the gym or for a run. Both activities she regularly does to maintain her best health. But after the gym, she and the scoundrel go somewhere to have fun. Unfortunately, I don't always know everything. Every time I try to address the issue or talk to her about anything, she becomes angry, denies any wrongdoing, and blames me. She spends a lot of time talking about the difficulties of taking care of the kids at home while I'm at work, accusing me of using the children to oppose her. These words are either untrue or meaningless in reality, while I still have to work full-time. I spent more time with the little ones than she did. The divorce process with the help of a lawyer left me disheartened. Infidelity doesn't really matter in our state. It doesn't have any significant impact. Beth clearly knows that the court almost always grants custody and child support to the wife, regardless of her behavior. Maintaining it for a few years is also normal if there are young children, allowing the ex-wife to stay at home and be a good mother instead of rushing to work. And here, standing before me, is a screaming woman with ugly red hair, tall and slightly cumbersome, with a nose sharp as a beak and lips a bit thinner, slightly overweight after giving birth 6 months ago, something that clearly displeases her with her previously slim figure. The anger in the cold rain makes her pale skin turn red and blotchy. I can't interject, so I step back, hold the door open, and wave to her. I realize there's no point in letting the neighbors hear a woman screaming at me outside. She follows me, loudly humiliating my masculinity as I walk to the dining table and pull out a chair for her. I then sit down myself and wait. Gradually, anger turns into bitter tears, then into tumultuous emotions, finally into lingering feelings. Her head sinks onto the table, wet hair blending into a tangled mess. I wait a moment until the flowing tears stop. "Are you done?" I ask. She remains silent, giving me a red-eyed glare of anger, grumbling but not saying anything. I continue. "If there's anything I can do, I'll do it. I don't like it any more than you do." I go on to explain how the legal process works and how I find myself at a disadvantage. You have to kick her, that cheap whore, without losing your anger. But I don't blame her. Great plan there. I could end up in jail and then on the streets. We sit in silence for a while until I stand up and prepare some hot tea. In the cold rain, I try my best not to look at her. She may not be beautiful, but she also doesn't have a seductive figure for me to admire. This is truly a challenge for me. She shivers as the hot tea spills on her body. Damn, I can't even feel it. It's too cold. I say nothing, but she unexpectedly looks down at her chest. Damn, again. Not rich at all. She wraps her arms around her body. I sigh internally. It makes her the sexiest she's been in the past 4 months. I can get you a warm jacket or something, or maybe one that belongs to your wife. I find one of my hoodies, and she quickly puts it on and buttons it up. She starts swaying, pulling her arms out of the sleeves, and after a few spins, she takes off the hoodie and the damp bra underneath, then slides her arms back into the hoodie. I pick up the laundry and throw it into the dryer. At least I notice that the TV show has resumed. The thin, delicate sweater is even more fragile than her bra and shirt combined. I grab a towel and hand it to her. Dry your hair, I say. Thanks. She dries her hair, and I see her breasts bouncing inside the sweater. The feeling of interest in anything at that moment is strange. I allow myself to look. Finally, her hair is dry, and she stops. I hate them, she screams. Me too. I never thought about this, I say. In that moment, I feel a strong, sharp pain, much like mine. I can't compete with her. She has a good figure and is beautiful. I gained weight after having a child. She's not really fat. Maybe just added about 10 pounds. She just has an unflattering appearance. But I am the same. But in some ways, she's right. Beth is truly beautiful, blonde hair, blue eyes, slim and graceful like a woman could be. But Nikki needs something to hold on to. I say, she maintains a good physique because she has time for the gym and running, while you are not overweight at all. A slightly different light from the beginning of pain emerges. So, what's next? I shrug. I don't know. Every time I participate in this game, I have to face loneliness and poverty, and she controls access to the child. I tell her everything I have been able to find out. But what if you have evidence of the affair? I suggest. But here, it doesn't matter. They don't care. But similar things hurt me, can work to your advantage in the divorce case. No chance. Justin works for his brothers in a construction company. Most of his salary is hidden. So there is not much official money for alimony for me and the child. I just want to make them break down. She roars. Exactly. I didn't expect this either. I think for a moment. How can we hurt them? She shrugs. I'm starting to feel better. Finally, I have an ally in this difficult situation. Really, everyone is making mistakes. We just need to find them. And his salary under the table could be a good starting point. I think about the new shoes appearing in Beth's closet. They look expensive. Money must come from somewhere. Something is going on there. Beth is spending money strangely. She nods with a bit of genuine energy. We can do this. I smile. It will be easy. We'll take the kids back and go lurking like an unholy mix of Magnum Pui and the Brady Bunch. No, my sister. Angie can watch the kids. She's babysitting Jamie now. She pauses, looking somewhat thoughtful. So where is your child? They are sleeping upstairs. I look around the room. Her gaze falls on the closed front door. Do you have joggers? My pants are wet. I pull out my joggers while she takes off her shoes. I head to the bathroom, but she turns her back, unlocks the wet jeans, and pulls them down along with her panties before stepping out. She starts to slowly wipe her legs and buttocks with the towel. The invitation is quite clear. I can almost hear the dropping of anxiety in her. I feel like she's daring, feeling rejected. If a resentful man, with every reason to seek revenge, someone who has somehow been cut off from sex for a long time, rejects her, she'll shatter. I feel a stream of anger, but it's anger towards my wife for setting me up like this. Nikki continues, I can't believe Justin could do this to me. I step closer and place my hand on her bare thigh. She shivers, and her voice stiffens, but she doesn't move away. So I place my other hand on her thigh. I don't like you, but I hate him. She pushes me away. I gently stroke my thigh with one hand and unlock the knit sweater with the other, throwing it down to the floor beneath us. Nikki appreciates my hands, her skin still cold from the chill, and she seems to absorb the warmth from my hands. And as I softly kiss her neck, letting my teeth touch her skin, her legs almost give way. She moans softly, and a few minutes later, I lift her up and place her on the dining table. I don't want to miss another minute of this encounter, as I don't know when I'll have the chance for sexual intimacy again. I want to savor it. When everything quiets down, she looks at me and smiles mischievously. After I clean up, I'll toss your jeans and underwear into the dryer, along with your shirt and bra, and we'll sit naked at the table for a few minutes, drinking cold tea. She looks at me with a melancholic look from under the tousled red hair. You knew this would happen when you invited me in. Really, not until you took off your jeans. I laugh. The first time I felt happy in a long time. How could any man refuse that? Since the birth of a new child, Justin has not cared about me or the child at all. I shook my head. I'd heard stories like this before, but before I could say anything, she continued. So, any woman, including Beth, could reject the sexual relationship you just offered me. You're much better than Justin. I don't understand why. She simply lost interest in me. Justin is younger, and she feels aged because of the child. I think this hasn't happened since the twins were born. I think she feels like she needs to be more of a mother to me or something. I can't believe he can't control his wife. I don't like your miserable wife. There was anger in each of our words, but we both knew it wasn't directed at each other. If you really want to do something about this, consider whether your sister can look after my child and yours tomorrow night, and we should do this quickly. They'll be home in about an hour, and I need to tidy up this room a bit. You should use some room spray because this seems like a place that has had some hot sex. She puts on clothes and rushes out of the house. I thoroughly clean the room and put the towel in the washing machine with the clothes. When Beth comes home, I find it quite easy to avoid the late-night discussions and arguments we usually have when she denies everything and lies about everything. She seems somewhat surprised at my lack of attitude. It's great that good sex helps alleviate the sense of resentment. She also notices the pristine cleanliness of my kitchen. I think she comments on how the room spray works, but honestly, I don't care. She also hesitates when I don't bother to try even a casual goodbye when I leave for work the next morning. I don't even attempt, and I can tell it catches her off guard as I just turn away. Anyway, I will give up sitting there waiting and end it, whatever it is at work. I've arranged to borrow a friend's car for a few months. Nikki's sister, who looks a lot like her, stays behind to babysit at her place. Nikki and I go, and we plan to check her brother's trailer to see if there's anything unofficial there. Clues could start from there. As she steps into the car, she smirks a bit. Everything hurts. This is the first time I've had sex in a long time, and you weren't gentle either. Don't think you'll get anything more today. I raise an eyebrow. Gentleness doesn't seem to be what you're thinking about. She smiles gently, though trying to restrain it. I noticed that for the first time since we met, she had put on a bit of makeup, albeit of slightly lower quality. I decided to change the plan and took her to the shopping center. We tried to find a topic to talk about, but since we had little in common, the conversation flowed intermittently. By the time we parked at the shopping center's parking lot, she looked perplexed. "Are they here?" she asked. "No, but I think we want to hurt them, so there are some small things we need to do." "What are you talking about?" I took her to the makeup counter at Macy's. She looked at me intently and somewhat threateningly. Think of it as a disguise. Over the next while, 2 women surrounded her and tried out millions of makeup products, resulting in a decent-looking Nikki, whom they instructed on how to use the products. She didn't become beautiful, but she succeeded in conveying a kind of seductive and desirous allure. "All right. Here, this set cost me $100 from my grocery money, but I'll skip lunch at the company next month, and it'll be fine." We walked back to the car, and she clutched the small makeup bag like it was a sacred chalice. She didn't want to like it, but she did. "So, what does all this mean?" "If we want to hurt them, you need something. Justin wants something he seems to have lost, and I need something that Beth will feel hurt and jealous about. That will be you. Keep your makeup at home, and only wear it when you and I go out." She looked puzzled, and I explained my plan to her. She sat silently for a minute looking bewildered. "Weird, it's a bit complicated and will take time." I shrugged. "Do you have a better plan?" She smiled gently. "Not really." She asked me to come to her house to remove her makeup, so Justin wouldn't find out. She went into the bathroom and came out after a few minutes, holding a towel, wearing only a smirk on her face. She had makeup that needed to be removed. The wicked gleam in her eyes said everything I needed to know about her intentions. I looked at her. "You told me not to expect anything. Sorry to waste this makeup." She dropped the towel without ceremony. We finally finished and went to her sister's house. Nikki had recruited her sister as an accomplice. Clearly, she had never loved Justin, and indeed, we needed her help. In the next few months, we worked hard to perfect ourselves. I exercise at the company during lunch hours. As for her, she works from home, and we exercise together in the basement until Nikki loses weight and enhances everything else. I also become quite strong. We keep this discreet from our self-absorbed partners by wearing loose clothes and appearing nondescript. Anyway, they don't pay much attention to us either. We also maintain our sexual relationship at least 5 to 6 times a week, more than I ever had with Beth. Both of us are stay-at-home parents, so we decide to change that. Destiny turned the basement into a dance studio. We knew nothing about it, but the power of YouTube prevailed. We had many weekends and evenings free because our partners continued to neglect us. We learned basic dance steps and then more complex ones. We really enjoyed salsa dancing, but we had to save it for our final performance. One thing I quickly realized was that I was playing with fire. Nikki wasn't very stable and had a mood resembling that of a wild Doberman caretaker. Her mood changed without warning, and almost anything could trigger an unjustified wave of anger. Everything that happened with Beth and Justin had shattered something important, one of the barriers of sobriety that we had broken down. I always tried to keep my eyes on her at all times. Whenever she seemed stable, only during sex, or when she was with the kids, both mine and hers, her love for children was unparalleled. She still called me a jerk, and I still called her a deaf mute. But those words, if not accurate and full of emotion, were at least strange. But all was to make us feel better, to have a real job to do, and we had to do it very carefully. Nikki concocted stories to visit the construction company's trailer during the day and recorded everything with her mobile phone. Luckily, her cousin was a bit stingy and didn't buy an alarm system. We sneaked in there 5 times, taking pictures of every document in every drawer, and slowly going through each document. Additional useful information was found in Justin's desk and Beth's purse. After a while, we stopped arguing with our partners, which was an issue for Beth. She really seemed to miss the arguments and tried to create senseless conflicts, but I never paid much attention to it, or at least hardly ever. Truly, after a long day with Nikki, I had no energy left to argue. It took me a while to realize that Beth might be using conflicts to justify her own terrible behavior every day. She became increasingly erratic. On the contrary, Justin seemed to think Nikki had completely given up. Also, I had $2,000. I invested this amount in a beachfront villa in Mexico with the intention of taking Beth there on our anniversary. An event that clearly would not happen. I did not expect them to refund the money, but they did. In customer relations, I thought this amount would be helpful when Beth starts finding reasons to stay with Justin, and Nikki and I begin frequenting a dance club, gradually testing the dance steps we've learned. It was fun, but also stressful. Nikki's unpredictability always imposed pressure on me. She could go from ecstatic joy to almost insane rage without warning if triggered. One particular night almost turned into a disaster, reminding me of the necessary caution. By this time, after weeks of exercise and almost daily sexual relations, Nikki was radiating sensuality. So it was not surprising that people often approached us while dancing. She truly enjoyed the attention, but it was not surprising that she sympathized with her neglected friends and tried not to display sensuality with their male companions. Unfortunately, some guys thought she would dance with them as enthusiastically as she did with me. A gay couple joined us at a small club somewhere. I was dancing with a cute, classic-looking girl while a guy was evidently trying to put his hand under Nikki's short skirt. She rejected him twice, but he persisted, and I immediately grabbed her hair as she lunged at him. I told him to stop. Nikki's gentle caress almost grazed his eyes, leaving bloodstains on his face. With the small girl beside me and Nikki furious, I instantly thought of a disaster. The guy quickly retreated, his eyes wide open as Nikki slowly turned back to me. Her long legs tightly wound around my hips, squeezing just below. "You jerk, you pulled my hair. It hurts so much," she said, pausing, then groaning. "But you really know what I like, don't you?" She looked at the petite girl standing next to me and winked at her. "You can find someone better than this guy. You deserve better. He's a deceitful jerk." We left the club at quite a pace, which seemed reasonable as 3 guys in safety shirts were heading towards us. The parking lot was full of cars but no people. 2 rows away, I saw a scratched man and 2 others coming out. He pointed towards Nikki, and his group headed towards me. Deaf-mute, Nikki was smiling. It was an inexplicable act. I tried to explain to the other group that his earlier actions were inappropriate. Someone in the group immediately asked what I could take out of her underwear. Nikki stopped, looking somewhat scared, and he reached out to grab her hand. However, I sensed excitement in Nikki's eyes when I felt the largest of the 3 advancing towards me from behind. Nikki jumped at him, not using her hands to hit him, but rather biting him. He screamed in pain and horror. I turned around. I'm not an MMA champion, but I'm quite familiar with fighting. I saw the crazed look in Nikki's eyes, so I was prepared. I pulled her back just as she was about to attack him in the chest. "Nikki, stop." She looked at me from head to toe with a wild look, then paused and smiled when I moved away from her. I saw a couple standing 15 feet away in the parking lot, a petite blonde girl and a bewildered-looking brunette. Nikki also noticed the sad blonde girl and walked towards her. I wanted to pull Nikki and run, but I knew that would make her angry, and if I didn't get her out of here quickly, both of us would end up in jail by morning. She approached the paralyzed blonde girl and stood over her. "Nikki, control yourself. She didn't do anything wrong." Nikki looked at me and laughed. "Oh, I know." She pulled the blonde girl towards her and passionately kissed her. I was about to intervene when I realized that the blonde girl was responding fiercely. Nikki slowly let her go, and the blonde girl looked at her like she was enchanted. "Trust me, you can find someone better than him. You deserve better. He's a deceiver." We got into the car, and an ambulance rushed towards us about 2 miles away. I didn't need to guess where it was heading, and I just hoped no one had recorded our phone number. I parked in the parking lot to give Nikki her clothes, but getting dressed was not a concern right now. So I tilted the seat, and we made love until she was satisfied. It took quite a long time, and afterward, she said, "I really messed everything up, didn't I?" We're somehow alike, although I really feel satisfied hurting him. Right, I've realized that. It feels somewhat uncomfortable, like Hannibal Lecter. Hurting him is like having sex. I had managed to release all my anger. He deserved that. I don't know if the legal system would agree, but I think his girlfriend had accepted it. Nikki chuckled modestly. "Speaking of hurting, don't let me do this again. Promise me seriously." Very seriously. Tears suddenly welled up in her eyes. "You protected yourself, I know, but that's not the main point. I want to hurt him strongly, very strongly. If it happens again, if I can't stop, if I can't find a way back." She began to speak like a lost child, fearful in the darkness. It truly frightened me. Perhaps Nikki needs real help, maybe medication, even regular medical checks. We completed the paperwork, The brutal assault in the parking lot attributed to the accomplices of a gang consisting of 6 men and a Hispanic woman, witnessed by a blonde girl named Amber. I had to laugh as I showed Nikki the documents. It seems like you made an impression on Amber after all. Nikki smiled. She seems like a good person, fair-skinned, strawberry lip balm. Do you like girls? I haven't even thought about it, just joking with her at the club. But parking is a different story. She wants me. I sense that, I see it in her eyes. And since he and I have been together, I simply don't hold any boundaries in sex anymore. However, after this incident, Nikki seems to be managing herself better, slowly, unevenly, but gradually improving. I see her struggling to restrain the demon when it appears. Sometimes she even conquers it. Nikki's sister can't babysit every night, so Nikki often brings Jamie along, and we often practice putting the child to sleep. As we stand at the door, checking on the child, I occasionally catch glimpses of Nikki and am surprised by the softness in her eyes. Sometimes she catches my gaze and smiles a gentle, melancholic smile, and in those moments, the demon within her seems very distant. I know that sooner or later, something will happen. Eventually, Beth finds me shirtless in the room and notices that I've lost weight and gained new muscles, commenting on it. I don't turn this into an argument, just put on my shirt and leave the room. Above all, I want her not to see Nikki's marks on my back and buttocks from the night before. Beth's suspicions are growing, meaning we have to move to the next step. I tell this to Nikki, so a few days later, instead of exercising and having sex, we have a car and a nice digital camera that we borrowed. And when Beth and Justin leave, we discreetly follow them. Nikki checks bills and credit card statements until we find out their structures. Beth is careful, but in Justin's mind, Nikki is overwhelmed, unable to protect herself, so he is careless and foolish. Justin's parents have a small wooden house by the beach, hidden behind the forest. It looks a bit shabby, but based on the mileage of the car, it's where they usually go on Fridays when they skip the gym altogether. We turn off the road and move gently towards the wooden house with the camera. No curtains, so it's not difficult to find them and watch. By the time we get into position, they are already lying naked on the bed because we had to walk from the car. I let some air out of Justin's tires to slow them down in case they try to leave early. We left the movie at a theater specializing in short nap images and then returned home. Beth arrived later than usual, disheveled with disarrayed clothes and hair. Nikki chuckled mischievously and told me the next day that Justin had to change a tire and later caught a nail on the way home, leading to a painful journey in the rain to a gas station 4 miles away. Perhaps that was a sign. In the following week, we discussed what we wanted. Nikki surprised me, but in the end, I agreed. We kept it a secret and then executed our big move about 3 weeks after we had collected enough evidence. Beth and Justin always disappeared all day on Saturdays, but Nikki and I built a scenario for them, first to go to the gym, then to the pool area and bath corners, and finally to nightclubs for dancing and partying. They usually returned home around 6 or 7 a.m. on Sundays. This time, however, everything seemed a bit different. When they left, we left the child with Nikki's sister and left ahead. We went shopping, and Nikki chose a deep emerald green dress, snug with a deep neckline and a very short hemline. The beautiful emerald green color really highlighted her hair. I wore a dark gray suit with a black shirt. I took her to a salon and told them to do something with her hair, along with makeup. After getting dressed, we went to the club and walked in as if we were the owners. In theory, the bouncers should check us, but Nikki looked like a sex symbol, so they let us pass without asking for ID. We were the first to step onto the dance floor, and then we moved on to the main event, Justin and Beth. They sat at the club's wedding table in the corner. Every Saturday after dancing a few songs, we approached their table. Nikki held my hand firmly. Beth wore a yellow dress I had never seen before, and Justin wore a navy suit. I would be lying if I said Nikki looked better than Beth. Beth had a tan and elegant complexion, but Nikki was more alluring. Instead of appearing sophisticated and complex, she exuded a confident, innocent charm that captivated attention throughout the room. I pulled out a chair for Nikki and sat down, while Beth and Justin seemed completely frozen in utter shock. I looked around with a bit of surprise. Very nice. Most gyms are less luxurious. Justin's face darkened, and he stared intensely at Nikki. This dress, you spent money on it. No, I asserted strongly. I just bought it. I placed a stack of photos of the log cabin on the table, selecting the worst ones I could find. Most of the pictures I took were beautiful, as they were all beautiful people. I went through the stack and pulled out the worst ones, portraying them as gloomy, awkward, and messy. I retrieved part of the deposit for a villa at a beach resort in Mexico that I planned as a surprise for Beth on our wedding anniversary. Since that's not happening, I decided to buy something useful. Something sparked on Beth's face, disappointment, perhaps realizing there was more money than she thought. Looking at the spread of photos in front of him, Justin finally sensed danger and became dumbfounded. Beth turned pale. So how long have we been working together? I asked. Almost 4 months. How do you know everything? I really didn't have to learn anything, I said. You didn't even bother to hide it. You simply thought we would be too devastated or too weak to do anything. Justin tried to maintain some composure and smirked sarcastically. So you fell in love, huh? Nikki smiled. I don't like him at all. He's a despicable man, and she's a real whore. I don't like her one bit. Nikki's predatory smile widened. But the sex, oh my, it's fantastic. Nothing beats passionate revenge sex, all the filthy things you can imagine. She looked at Beth with a chilling gaze and a series of things she would never do. I knew for sure that no, but the goodness of the family had persuaded the girl to try all kinds of new sexual experiences. She sang the last verse involuntarily, glancing briefly at Justin. Beth recoiled as if slapped hard in the face and looked towards me. You can't do this. We tried working together, but that was a completely foolish alliance. I laughed, but there was no joy. I'm just waiting for this pimp to be ready. And I've had sex with him 3 or 4 times a week while taking care of kids and living as a single gay man for many months. People came to my office to report bad news, not only about his affair, but also about how he turned it into a public chaos. We don't need surveillance to catch him. Everything is in plain view. I can feel my anger building up quickly, but Nikki holds onto my leg firmly this time. Nikki appears more composed, taking clear control. Clearly, the divorce will be due to infidelity. It won't make any financial difference, but facing the truth is fairer and will make us feel better. My new hobby will be ensuring everyone has a copy of the photos and a full explanation of how he ruined his marriage, family, colleagues, employers. I might even find his Sunday school teacher. She focuses on Justin a bit. By the way, I'm moving in temporarily with my sister and Jamie. Get yourself prepared. I throw the ball, a bit more serious this time. For you, the truth is that both of you embezzled money from a construction materials account at a construction company. It took us a long time to figure this out, but when Nikki realized that both of you were spending money like sailors on vacation, we knew the money had to come from somewhere. Nikki and I have gathered enough evidence. There are tax issues, financial fraud, and even a case of gender fraud. So even if Justin has a family member agree to it, you're still facing a real problem. Perhaps you'll be looking at a prison sentence from 1 to 10 years. I glance at Justin, and a few years of jail as an accomplice for you, Beth. Wide-eyed, Beth immediately tries to defend herself. I don't know. I think it's his money. So I deposited it into the account to protect it from the divorce. I cut her off. Right, you're holding it for a friend. Besides, this puts this money on the same level as our divorce. If my name is on this account, I'd think you set a trap for me. This will end very badly. Beth and Justin turned pale. I suspect they considered this idea, but seemed to have decided to reject it. I propose a counteroffer that Nikki and I discussed earlier. You have a chance for a better future. Justin, seize it, quit your job, and go to the mountains at least 400 kilometers away. Bring in your car, clothes, soccer trophies, and the yearbook. That's all you need. Nikki will file for divorce. She won't get anything from the divorce. Review the secret agreement with our family member. We won't report to the police or your family. If your family discovers it and takes action, it'll be your problem. I suggest you put all the remaining money into his company's account. This might change his decision to start looking for you. I look at Beth. I will file for divorce. I will have primary custody and no financial support, with the reason being infidelity. Do you agree, or will you go to jail, and I will retain full custody? As for our miscellaneous belongings, make a short list of everything you want, but it has to be very short. You can leave clothes and keep all those damn shoes. Nicky intervenes. He suggests I keep your stuff, but the shoes are too small and the clothes are ugly. I stopped wearing lingerie since we started living together, so you can keep your granny panties. I smile at Nicky as Beth struggles not to choke. I continue, find a job, move in with your parents or anyone else. I don't care. You will meet many times with the children. I won't interfere if you're a good mother. I won't tell your parents the reason for the divorce. I gaze into their eyes to ensure they are paying attention to me. The offer is only valid if both of you agree. Nicky leans forward, revealing her appealing bust, perhaps to prove something. Oh my God, you've achieved a great success. We really spoke the truth when we said we have nothing in common. We can't even agree on a movie. We hate each other's music, and if he talks about his hobbies, I'll faint. And she's a complex emotional harpy. Her tone is like a broken glass shard on my nerves. I add, Nicky continues to look intensely into Justin's eyes like a snake staring at its prey. So when we got back together and didn't know how to punish him, we did one thing. We had sex. That's all that could happen. If we had dinner together, it was just to accumulate power and have sex again. She looks at Beth. I can't believe you left him to choose such a loser. I'm not kidding. If you think so, come with us once, and you might see. Maybe it'll be more appealing if there's a chance. I glance at the clock and interrupt. Remember the agreement. Sorry, but we have to go so I can pick up the kids. I stand up and shake hands with Nicky. Something has changed in Nicky, perhaps due to the confrontation with Justin and Beth, but the insane anger seems to have disappeared, leaving only the desire for sex as before. But the peak of madness is truly gone. Beth almost pushes past me. I just put the kids to bed when she barges through the front door. We need to talk. I sink into a comfortable chair. We should have talked a month ago. Listen, maybe we should stand a bit apart. You can't let this person destroy us. Stop it. I raise my hand. Only this scam is destroying our marriage right in front of me. She looks at me with a particularly disgusted look, a rarity for her. You really don't understand, Beth. Compared to Justin, your fate is simply bearable. Nicky fought for you. She begged and pleaded for you. She tried to make Justin truly evil in this situation, and you can't imagine how difficult it was for her. She hates you to every cell of her soul, but she still did it because she felt her accident caused hours of pain. I'm not even sure if I agree with this, but I made a deal because she begged me. I pause, restraining the anger before it explodes, and then speak slowly. If the money laundering account is opened in my name, or if the DNA of the twins has a different result, we won't be having this conversation. Nicky can beg for anything, but it doesn't matter. She squints, suddenly realizing with horror that we are isolating ourselves. How lonely we are. How long do I have to move out? I'll give you until midnight tomorrow just for a delicate balance, but I'll give you a week. It will take 2 days to pack all these shoes, and God knows I want them to disappear. She mumbles like an apology and walks up the stairs. It takes her 5 days to move out, leaving me alone with the kids. Even with the twins, everything becomes quite empty. I heard that Justin's relatives are looking for him, but won't call the police. I hope Justin is hiding well. His relatives are always violent. Perhaps I broke a bit of my promise when I didn't tell his relatives what happened. 2 weeks later, I allowed the twins to stay with Beth and her parents on weekends. They clearly know the rules, and Beth also understands that punishment for anything foolish will be a quick trip to jail. Around midnight one day, there's a knock on the door. When I open it, Nikki stands there in combat and night attire, looking almost cheerful. At least someone is adapting. This makes me chuckle. Finally, someone has adapted. She walks away. I nodded, turning back to her parents, trying to explain the mystery of the divorce petition with Chester written on it in bright red lipstick. Thanks for sending this. Nikki smiled, her crazy smile. Great, I want to do something beautiful for her. Let's create something for them to talk about. I laughed. I had promised not to tell Beth's parents, but Nikki made no such promise. In fact, she promised the opposite. So a series of packages were sent to Beth's friends and family with the photos. I doubted she would ever truly get over this. Nikki's smile widened. Oh, I brought a welcome gift. I almost corrected her, but in the end, I did nothing. Somehow, she was right. The house became new. I thought we could share a dessert, a familiar face under a light hat stretching behind her. I bought fudge. Poor Amber. She didn't have much experience, and we both treated her like a candy bar that she really was. We pulled her into our storm. She was more of a catalyst than a complaining partner on an open flame, though she wasn't a complainer. After all we've done for each other in the past few months, we could give Amber a certificate course in joy. She passed out twice. Nikki smiled like a cat that caught the bird. The next morning, she helped Amber, who could only walk with shaky legs, to her car. A few nights later, Nikki came alone. A few days after that, she came with Jamie. When the kids were asleep, she silently led me straight to the bedroom. This time we moved slower, much slower. Then, I lay there looking up at the ceiling, her head on my shoulder, while her fingers traced a pattern on my chest. We can't keep going like this, Nikki. I sensed her tension before she spoke. I continued. We were kind of in harmony. I know we've never explicitly expressed it, but I think we agreed that we had nothing in common, no emotions, and I had an issue with this silence. Then slowly, that damn jerk. I felt her familiar crazy smile pressed onto my shoulder as her finger traced a heart on my chest. Maybe when you were a kid, you were quite foolish, weren't you? Should they invite a specialist to teach you how to walk? Hey, dummy. Beth may not have been embarrassed enough, but that was Nikki's choice, and Nikki is a complicated and possibly insane person, so her choice is hard to understand. Maybe she believes there are fewer chances of resolution, at least for some people, or maybe she wants Beth to see what she has lost. Don't get it wrong. Beth has lost everything she truly valued. Nikki made sure of that, and I'm sure Nikki wouldn't be happy if Beth went to jail. Nikki might even control Beth's access to her daughter after a while. This whole thing, from the first day she stood in the rain, might have been her plan from the beginning. I'm not sure and don't want to ask. She might just answer. Nikki has a permanent place in my heart. She might not be as beautiful as Beth, but so what? She loves fiercely and wholeheartedly, and she will never let go until she turns to dust. She brought Amber back several times, but Amber didn't threaten the relationship. She is something Nikki wants to share with the man she loves. As Nikki says, Amber is mostly just a reward, a piece of cheese you can't eat alone but are happy to share. Nikki just expresses her love in a somewhat unconventional way. Sure, she's manipulative and crazy, possibly dangerous, but that's her character.